everybody, it is time for fake fireside chats with Tracy and Ruth. She just happened to be in here with me, so I figured whatever. But if that tail keeps going like that, we're gonna have to just knock that off. Today on Fake Fireside Chats with Tracy, I would like to discuss changing unwanted behavior. Okay, so this is going to be a general topic. And the reason why I want to discuss it is because recently we've gotten a few foster dogs or rescue dogs that have come in that have either had to be moved from a foster or they've been bumped around a little bit. And when they get here, we find that we get a lot of very, very anxious whining and barking and carrying on, which is perfectly normal. Now, as far as that behavior goes, when they are here, we don't necessarily correct that. We don't start putting in places to actually, any sort of techniques to actually change that behavior, except that we don't acknowledge them when they're doing that behavior. So they won't get let out if they're whining or crying or carrying on. We don't look at them or talk to them or touch them when they're whining, crying, and carrying on. And what we find is that even without any sort of training, that behavior will start to get less and less and less, and eventually it just stops and we don't have whining or barking or freaking out or carrying on in the kennel. Now, that being said, we're pretty lucky out here. We're out in the country. We're not in an apartment building where our neighbors are going to complain if you let that behavior go. So I'm not suggesting that that is something that you should do. What I am suggesting, though, is anytime that you are thinking about starting to change an unwanted behavior, most unwanted behavior starts with you. And what I mean by that is the very first place to start looking when I want to start to change a behavior is I need to start looking at myself first to see, is there any way that I am perhaps rewarding that behavior? Am I encouraging that behavior? Am I amping up that behavior? Is my behavior affecting that behavior? And the reason why I say that is because dogs, like everybody else, only do things that work for them. The reason why they will repeat a behavior is because they benefited from it in some way. And we might not see it right away, how did they benefit from it, but it worked, right? We only do things that work. If it doesn't work for us, we stop doing. And that's what happens here, right? These dogs whine and they carry on and they bark and they freak out. And maybe somewhere in the past that behavior worked for them. Maybe that whining and carrying on got them out of the crate before. Maybe that whining and carrying on got them a little bit more loving, or a little bit, oh, I feel so bad for you, whatever. And it worked for them. But see, what happens here is it's not working for them anymore. That behavior doesn't work for them anymore. And they start to eventually learn that the only way that they get out of their run is to actually be quiet. Stop behaving like that. And they learn the routines and everything else. And now these dogs start to know, oh, I get it. I go out for play at this time. I get fed at this time. I don't get out if I whine and carry on. That's just not going to happen, right? So the first place to start in any behavior modification is with yourself. Start with yourself. Honestly look at yourself and think, am I amplifying up this excitement at the door? Do I use a raised voice and say hi to my dog, and that's what's causing my dog to jump? Am I barking with my dog when my dog is barking out the window? Am I yelling at them and going, hey, stop it, stop it, stop it, no, no, no? Am I building up that energy of that bark? I mean, we can talk about tools and everything else that can help jumping and barking and all of those sorts of things. But realistically, we want to start with you. What are you doing that may be making it worth it for the dog? Now, I did say most behavior. And I want to sort of clarify that. Most behavior can be corrected or is being amplified by your behavior. But there are some dogs and some behaviors that behavior may be genetically in there. Like, for example, we have Rue, who is an Australian Shepherd. Hi. Who is an Australian Shepherd. So she is genetically predisposed to chase things, to herd things, to control situations. That's just in her blood. It's in her DNA. So that kind of behavior, I'm not saying it can't be changed, but I'm saying chances are that kind of behavior is genetically inputted into her. I also have a Jack Russell Terrier. So he is genetically predisposed to kill things like rats and mice and my patients, you know, so we can't always blame ourselves for stuff like, you know, the Jack Russell that doesn't come when he's called, you know, stuff like that. So there are certainly some behaviors that perhaps, you know, may have some genetic predisposition for the dog's behaviors. But I'm talking about, you know, jumping up on people, barking at the window, you know, pulling on a leash, that kind of stuff. You know, a lot of that you have to ask yourself, you know, what did I do to perhaps maybe create this unwanted behavior? Start with yourself first, focus on that, and then we can certainly talk about tools and tricks and training that you can do to start to shape and change that behavior the way you want to. So there you go. That was my tip for today with Rue. I'm not really sure what she's doing there. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I will talk to you all later. Cheers.